This week in Pure Reinvention.
Well, people's attention spans are so much shorter now that you have the chance to continually test and retest. And, you put a Facebook post out there. If it doesn't work, okay, well, try another one.
Episode 84, John Stocki, owner of the Stocki Exchange.
Engage, disrupt, adapt, repeat. You're listening to Pure Reinvention, the podcast for curious people.
Welcome to this episode of Pure Reinvention, where we create space for the unexpected by inspiring a reinvention lifestyle. Jody, I really liked John's comments.
Yeah. John he's got an energy, man. You can just tell even over the radio waves as you listen to him here. This is a guy that is in constant motion.
Well, and I think because he's in constant motion, there's a number of nuggets that we want to throw out there for people to be listening for, because I think they're really key. One of them is John's discussion about pain.
We have seen this in our own lives, right, personally, but also professionally with those that we've worked with, that people don't really make a significant change until they feel the pain of what they're currently doing not working. And so I loved his comment that this sort of slow growing pain is the most dangerous of all, because by the time you really feel it, it's too late. Exactly.
There's lots of other nuggets. Jody, I want to really thank you, Jody Schaefer, HRM Services, for being a co-host for this episode. Yeah. And we've got a lot to talk about at the end.
This week's episode is sponsored by HRM Services, providing solutions that work. HRMS provides customized human resource consulting services to fit the unique needs of their clients. Every client has a story, and they make it their business to learn yours. Contact HRM Services today at 517-974-8033 or visit their website at hrmservices.biz.
Of the 5 steps in the Pure Reinvention process, which step do you most closely associate yourself with?
Definitely with disruption.
And John, your superpower?
I'd have to say it's kind of my need or driver. I have to have kind of continuous change and innovation. There's always, what could you be doing better? So I just have that inside of me. Nothing is ever completed.
And then third question, John, when was the last time you did something outside of your comfort zone?
Every day. As my kind of passion is that continuous change and innovation. Being an entrepreneur, it's what can I do today that will keep my motivation going and keep my hustle going? Something that I got to keep trying, something different that no one else is doing to differentiate myself.
So, John, tell us a little bit about your background and how you created the Stocki Exchange and what its intent is.
So, after I graduated college, I went to Grand Valley in Grand Rapids. I moved overseas for the next 6 years. So I had the opportunity to go to Australia. So I lived there for a year. And then I moved to the Middle East and lived in the United Arab Emirates for 3.5 years. And then moved to China for a year. And when I was living overseas, I was a marketing and e-commerce director for Kempinski Hotels. And that allowed me to travel to over 30 countries before I was 27. So I had the great fortune of getting that travel, getting to see a lot, work with a lot of different places and a lot of different people. And then was a little bit sick of being on a 40-hour plane ride every time I needed to come home. So I decided to move back to the U.S., closer to family and friends. Then was looking for jobs all over the country. Nothing was really kind of sticking out to me, and that kind of entrepreneurial spirit was sticking with me. So I started doing some consulting actually for Choice Hotels. And then one thing led to another, and I kept doing that. And then eventually just started taking on kind of low-hanging fruit of jobs that I could do in marketing. And then in the last 2 years, I've really focused on just focusing on hospitality consulting. So I kind of say I'm a combination between Bar Rescue and Hotel Impossible, and work with kind of both of those industries, pulling together hospitality experiences, auditing, helping people restructure what their business is trying to do, and failing businesses or businesses that are doing really well. And they're like, we want to be on the next level of what's happening. We want to take risks. We want to be the thought leader. We want to make the wave. We don't want to ride the wave.
John, let's talk about some of what you just talked about. And explain to me how this opportunity you had to travel internationally has affected your entrepreneurial understanding.
I was always an entrepreneur at heart. It didn't really present itself until I came back to the U.S. knowing like that's where my calling is. But now that I look back at it, I remember in high school I was always the kid who used to sell Frankenmuth products and chocolate bars and things like that for fundraisers. And I was always the one who sold the most. I could sell a ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves. I mean, I used to go to the bowling alley with my parents, and I would run up and down the bowling alley to every single table during the league and sell everyone chocolate bars or candy, whatever we were doing. So I had that with me. I've always kind of had that sales aspect. And then traveling overseas just really broadened my horizons to the possibilities. I learned so much about people and cultures and how things are different in different places and how people are happy, and it kind of puts a lot of things into perspective. So I think that has helped me learn more about myself, being self-aware, being comfortable with me, and then being able to share that and help other people is amazing. And that's why I love the hospitality side of things. I love the personal connection of what you have to do in a hospitality-based business. It's less about the what. Like, I don't like selling pens or pencils. In hospitality, you sell experiences. Restaurants sell an experience, not just food. Same thing with a resort. People are on vacation. It's the kind of sum of all those experiences which says, hey, was this a good vacation or a bad vacation? And all the different things that are involved with that. I love helping people walk through that process and make sure that what they're delivering is what they intend to deliver and what the consumer wants.
John, why did you identify with disruption as one of the steps in the reinvention process that you felt connected with you the most?
The market, I mean, the concept, basically just the internet, the way that communication happens so fast now, you have to be continually changing. Competition is getting more and more intense. The ability for people to move into a market or change, and consumer trends are changing infinitely faster than they ever have before. So that concept of disruption is, especially in the hospitality industry, you have to always be being better, following what the next trend is, but also being consistent in what you're offering. So there's that continual battle between people really love consistency and things that they like, but then they also like to try the latest and greatest. So you have to find a good combination of both of those to make your business continually relevant and to have a consumer base which is continually, purchasing or using your products or services.
So let me make sure I understand in the way you're interpreting disruption, you use the foundation of exceptional customer experience as your base point, but you have to constantly be aware of the new emerging trends that are influencing the guest experience or the customer experience in order to constantly be alert to connecting appropriately with that customer base.
For sure. And your target market, it's called the target market because the target's always moving. It's never just like, boop, that's one person.
And therein lies the key, right?
Exactly.
The target's always moving.
It's always moving. And people who this is our target customer, this is who it's always been, and that's who it's always going to be, you need to be disrupted. Something has to change. You have to feel a pain at some point before you're going to want to change. And when that pain is very slow growing, it's difficult to see those impacts immediately. And sometimes when you feel that pain, it's already too late.
So you are using disruption in your example to, in a very positive way, help connect the business to the customer or to connect the individual to the experience. And you are advocating for the faster you can do that, it being better.
Yeah, I mean, you have to fail. There's a lot of inherent risk out there. Well, people's attention spans are so much shorter now that you have the chance to continually test and retest. And, you put a Facebook post out there. If it doesn't work, okay, well, try another one.
Let's talk about the role of failure in reinvention. Let's talk about how we should be thinking about failure today versus how we might have looked at failure a number of years ago.
Well, okay, let's take this for example. 30 years ago, when communication was only controlled by kind of four major things, print, outdoor, radio, and TV, messaging was very, very focused, streamlined, and only in a couple areas. That's where you received all your information. But now we have the internet. So information is freely available everywhere. Everyone's a content creator. We no longer need the TV stations or only radio. Everyone is a content creator. And with that becomes this storm and the amount of things that happen on the internet. Everyone knows it. Go to your Facebook. Go to the internet. Like, there's more content created every second that you could ever consume in your life. So with that, people have to be able to sort through what's good information, what's bad information, what information do I trust, which don't. So with a multitude of different sources, people no longer make their decisions based on only three things or four things: print, radio, outdoor, and TV. They now have 10 million sources to get it. So each source specifically creates a different trust or value to them. So with the failure part, Facebook, if you put a Facebook ad out that didn't quite work so well, that's not the same thing as potentially you took out 15 billboards and you wasted a huge amount of money and then that didn't work. You have the ability to kind of react and change your messaging to have a more immediate response from the end consumer and can make changes much quicker. And these aren't detrimental changes. So by failing and finding out, well, this doesn't work, well, that doesn't work, that's the need for that constant change of whatever your business is doing. You can make smaller changes that don't have such an impact as potentially back in the day you would have had to say, well, we want to make this sweeping change. The only way to get it out is via this and this and this. And that's a larger risk.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, we can actually use some of these new mediums as test markets to see what the reaction is. So instead of calling these failures, we're actually kind of probing and testing using some of these new mediums, and the risk is actually very low because we can immediately change course if we find that we are not getting the traction that we want, or the reverse, which is if we find that we're getting great traction, we can actually then put more resources into that specific direction.
Exactly. And back in the day, the model was completely different. It was, we came up with this idea. Okay, well, now let's blast it everywhere. Facebook, radio, print, outdoor, launch it. And then you sat back and you said, well, I hope this worked. There's no way to track a print ad or a billboard. It's very difficult, especially in hospitality, to give a direct ROI. Well, with the digital side of things, we can immediately see who clicked on things, what time, how long did they stay on our website, did they convert, how many times have they visited our website, and then there's all kind of retargeting options, and all the information that you get through digital channels are in black and white, and they give a sense of for trackability. It's not a word, I just made it up. Right. But you can then actually see what's happening. And then, like you perfectly explained, you can either cut your losses and move on to the next piece of content, or you can say, this is working awesome. Let's ramp it up and take it to a larger market. A lot of the market, specifically in hospitality, is a very old market. It was one of the first professions. It's slow. They don't respond to the market quickly. So a lot of people are paralyzed by perfection, especially in the small side of business. This is how we've been doing it for 30 years. We have to make sure everything looks great, grand, wonderful, perfect. And they don't realize that consumer attention span is a fraction of what it used to be. So you spend all that time and effort, and by the time you actually got it out, it's already passed. It doesn't make sense anymore. You have to be able to respond quickly and consistently with smaller bits of content rather than these massive, huge campaigns that you're trying to do once a year. That's not going to turn around to give you a larger ROI.
And that in fact then becomes the reinventive thought process that goes into how you stay connected to your marketplace.
Exactly. And that's where disruption for me is the biggest, like being paralyzed by perfection. And I have the same struggle with my own company every day. It's like I have an insane attention to detail with things. So sometimes I'm also paralyzed by perfection. Like, I want it to look better. It could look like this. It could look like that. And then I just never end up getting things done.
Right.
And I see that in myself, and it's easily visible to me from an outside perspective in other companies. They're blaring right in my face. It's so easy to point out and say this, that, the other. This is why it didn't work. Why are you doing this, that, and the other? So I found it's a perfect model and a much needed model in the industry. I mean, policies and procedures are very important, but there's no longer it has to be 1 and then 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's the model. This is the way we've always done it, and just do it. No. It has to be, well, if this happens, now here's 4 options that we can do. Now, based on those 4 options, each of those options has 3 tracks that we could go down and try.
How many businesses have you worked with in the last 6 months that can honestly say they are behaving what you are explaining to us right now?
A perfect client of mine is a new hotel, and they're sucking this up left and right, up and down, and living it to the fullest now. Let's stop. Let's get away from this manual that was written 25 years ago and look at people, get their feedback. This place is in a small town. It's still locally focused. So people are so important for them and their market and their target market. They know who it is. And being in seasonal destinations, you understand that market changes dramatically from July to December. So talking with people, and that's one thing that I love to try to bring back, especially in hospitality. We've had all these fancy tools that come out on the internet and social media and analytics, and sometimes a lot of people are pushing for use your analytics and your tools and resources and everything that can be tracked. And that is important, and those are valuable tools. But a lot of the times they're not understanding their market. They're reading headlines on CNN and saying, oh, hey, 300 million people are using Twitter every day. We need to be on Twitter. Are any of those people using Twitter your market? If not, then don't use Twitter. You don't need it. So kind of balancing that. Who is my market? Where are they changing? And where is their attention? And then where am I going to be using my resources and tools to put information to connect with people?
John, what you're really advocating is that a business or an enterprise in this reinventive thought process has to be very aware of how their marketplace does connect to them, as opposed to a one-size-fits-all approach like where we used to be.
Exactly. And just because it's easy for you and comfortable for you, and you think that I like using Twitter, so everyone else should, it doesn't matter. And your product, you can have the best club sandwich on earth, but if no one in your area likes club sandwiches, then you don't have a business. The market will dictate who wins and who loses, not whether what you think is good or bad.
John, if people are more interested in some of the work that you are doing, how can they get a hold of you?
I'd love to connect with you via email. You can email me at john@Stocki Exchange, STOCKI, exchange.com, or just visit StockiExchange.com. You can follow there for all of my speaking sessions, or just get in contact with me direct. I'd love to chat.
Whew, I feel like I need to take a breath after that interview, huh? So I know John through another association that we do joint work with. And even in the phone conversations John and I have had, I never get off the phone in less than a half hour. He has so much to say and such a passion for what he does. And you could probably hear that come through. But a couple key takeaways that I really was really focusing in on, this idea of failing quickly, failing small. That you always have to sort of test an idea or test a market before you build a whole campaign around it. And John pointing out that the change in the way we use technology and the way that we communicate allows us to do that now in a way we never could do it before.
I think that's a great point because of technology, right? The old model used to be that we had to have it well thought out and well understood. And when we rolled it out, there was no modification.
But that has to be your mindset, that you're testing.
Yes.
Because otherwise, if it flops, that could sort of paralyze you from doing anything else. And he made another good point about the mediums in which you're going to use in order to reach your target audience. And he said, I'm a social media guy, and you can read all this stuff that Twitter's the biggest, best thing. But if your audience is not on Twitter, Twitter's not for you.
Again, the lesson is if you're going to fail quick. And remember, failure is getting you one step closer to success.
Right.
It's that constant innovation. and that ability to accept this concept that we have called graduated understanding, which is the more you learn, the more you can adapt, the more you can adjust. You don't stay fixed in time. We're not in that world anymore. We have to have this graduated understanding that we're in constant motion. We're constantly innovating. And I think John did a great job of explaining that.
Yep. So if you're ready to make a change, make it a change that lasts. Make it pure reinvention.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Pure Reinvention. Keep the conversation going and get alerts when new podcasts are up by following us on Twitter at Pure Reinvention or sign up for our mailing list at purereinvention.com.